I like Mayfield at plus 700.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that when we did our mock draft or our snake draft last night in terms of like, I think I took Baker third, either third or fourth, I forget. And you saw what Matthew Stafford did against the Lions.
Yeah.
I don't think that Baker Mayfield, whether he's injured or not, isn't going to be able indoors to be able to put up some of those same numbers. I would not be shocked if Baker Mayfield put up 350 passing yards.
You took him last, T. You took him
Took
fourth.
him last.
Yes.
Took him last.
No, now you're talking my language. We talked about this a little bit earlier this week, so I bet it. So 7-1.
So you did that. Okay.
Yeah, it actually opened 9-1
for
for
really?
Baker. Yeah, so he's taking a little bit of money. We got 9-1. I just really like this matchup, man.
Yeah,
Cam
same.
Sutton, if you're into Pro Football Focus grades, I know J.J. Watt's not. He has a 55.6 coverage grade, and he's 5'11". Mike Evans had the drop. Usually Mike Evans, if he costs you money one week, bounces back the next.
We loved him last week. Obviously, the Lions defensively in the secondary are very gettable. Do you think Mike Evans bounces back?
Very rarely does Mike Evans ever put together two bad games. So not only do I think he comes back, I think he comes back in a big-time way against this Detroit secondary. So go ahead and give me over 69.5 receiving yards. Detroit
Nice.
Dead last in yards per game allowed to outside wide receivers. And, man, that anytime touchdown is looking really tasty at plus 100. The Lions have allowed a primary outside wide receiver to score a touchdown in 8 of their last 10 matchups going back to week 10. They give it up to the outside. Mike Evans, one of the premier touchdown scorers in the NFL. I think he gets it done this week.
Yeah, I love that matchup against Cam Sutton, who's 5'11" on the outside, too. What do you think about the Detroit side? Who would you look at? Jared Goff, really good against the blitz, and probably going to see a lot of that from Todd Bowles in this game. Who would you look at on the receiving side for Detroit in this matchup?
For Jared Goff, I do have him in terms of the over, in terms of the passing yards, but I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't love the matchup because Tampa Bay has been getting pressure on the quarterback in recent weeks, and Goff has just been absolutely horrific under pressure throughout his career, but especially this year as well. Since week number 10, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions while under pressure, 58.9 passer rating. So I'm a little bit hesitant in that regard, but I do love Baker Mayfield a lot. Again, I hate to keep picking on Detroit. Actually, I don't hate it. I'm going to keep picking on him because I love it. 255.5 is the passing yard prop for Baker Mayfield at minus 115. Look, he's been over this number in 4 of his last 5 games, and the Lions have allowed 345 plus passing yards in 4 straight games. They've been getting absolutely slammed in the backfield. It's the hardest pass funnel defense in the NFL right now, and I think Baker Mayfield does come through.
The weakest team remaining in terms of regular season performance, I feel like Tampa's the team that could go in and break Detroit's heart this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with that, unfortunately, and I love the Lions. The one player who the Eagles did have go absolutely bonkers was Devontae Smith. Even with Jalen Hurts looking pedestrian, even with all that pressure. So does that mean you'd still back Amon-Ra St. Brown? Or is there another receiver that you think has a better matchup against the Bucs?
No, I will bounce him. I will back him, pardon me. I will back him because he had a comment that, I don't know if it flew under the radar or people just didn't care, but when the Pro Bowl vote came out, it felt like he kind of built a grudge, like he had a chip on his shoulder. Part of the reason I bet hard on the Detroit money line last weekend was because of the emotion and because Jared Goff was going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder because he wanted to flip the middle finger to the Rams after all this time, and justifiably so, and because you knew Ford Field was going to be electric for their first home playoff game in 31 years. Well, this is now their second home playoff game. And I'm not saying the Lions fans aren't going to be full throat, but the emotion and the energy in that building, it's very hard to replicate what it felt like last week. And Jared Goff doesn't have the chip on his shoulder. I mean, maybe he does. Maybe he's still playing to prove that, yeah, I'm still a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. But when you're dialed in like he was dialed in last week to specifically take down a team, you're going to get the best out of him, and I think we did. Brown is still a guy that I think can come up with a big game because I think Tampa Bay's secondary is suspect. That's part of the reason that they're going to bring so many guys so many times. But you got to equal that out with Jared Goff is not able to move around like Jalen Hurts is, and Jalen Hurts could not move around. So I think you're probably going to see the overhit because there's going to be that one or two, 35, 40, 45, 50-yard big plays to Samra Brown. But I don't think that is going to be something consistent out of Detroit. This is one of those games, y'all, that I hate cliches in sports. They drive me crazy, but offense sells tickets, defense sells championships. It feels like Tampa Bay has a little bit of an edge. And if you can get them, I think what was that line at? Like 8.5 points? If you can get them there, take them there, kids.
What do you think about Kansas City, Buffalo? This is the reason why we have the new overtime rule in the National Football League. And we got the Chiefs 2.5-point dogs. It was 3, but it was weird where you had to pay -120. So it was always really 2.5. Total's 45.5. What do you like, Mahomes as a dog or the Bills to finally get it done at home?
I gotta go with Josh Allen, man. Like, has he the last 3 weeks not looked like the Josh Allen we expected him to see, right? Like, he looks like he's clicked. And I think that if you're in the headset, Josh, the mind space that Josh Allen's in right now, you got to know this is a legacy game for you, right? Because right now, Mahomes owns your ass in the playoffs, and everybody knows it right now. He's got you 2 in a row. This is a legacy game for Josh Allen. If he wants to continue to be not labeled Dak Prescott in the playoffs, he's got to beat Mahomes. And to do it at home, to have all the advantages he has not had the 2 times he's gone to Kansas City, he's got to take advantage of that. And I think you saw the last 2 weeks of the playoffs, I think you saw Buffalo kind of hit their stride. Like, I feel like they kind of clicked. So I'm riding hard with Buffalo. Look, Kansas City looked good last week against Miami, but we also saw Miami the last few weeks of the season. As much fun as I had watching Mike McDaniel be an absolute dork all year, and I say that as a total compliment because I'm also a raging dork who admits it, they were fun. They were electric, but they weren't good. And we can blame that on injuries for Miami. We can blame it on playing in negative 2,000 degrees, which is BS. Dome the stadiums. I'm tired of snow games. We'll put that aside for a minute. But they weren't good, and they played poorly. And Kansas City took advantage of that. Miami is not Buffalo. That's why Buffalo won the division. That's why Buffalo's hosting this game. I like the Bills at the house, and I like the cover.
Beyond the fact that the Chiefs are actually playing on the road, is I think it's going to be up to their defense to kind of win this thing. Josh Allen has been, an MVP candidate this year, and, they definitely have, I feel like they've had it more going offensively this year than Kansas City has. But Buffalo's got a bunch of injuries on defense, and the Chiefs, their defense has been pretty good all year. I'm not counting what happened last week against Miami because the weather, I'm sure, impacted the Dolphins, but their defense has been pretty good all year. So, weirdly enough, I think the Chiefs need to keep this, kind of a more low-scoring game. They've struggled in the red zone, as we saw last week, and, their receivers have been very hit or miss this year. So, they got to, as weird as it sounds, they need to be the team that, is effective, limits turnovers, and then defensively gets after Josh Allen, as best they can. I'll tell you what, if Buffalo doesn't win this game, we just talked about coaching changes. Yeah. I think you really have to wonder about Sean McDermott, not because he's not a good coach, but from the same point of getting over the hump, right? I mean, it's one thing to keep losing to Kansas City in Kansas City, but you've got home field advantage. The Chiefs are not exactly, on fire right now. You got to win this game somehow. I mean, it's easier said than done, but Buffalo's got to figure out how to get this one done.